Good afternoon and welcome to another installment of Hanapin Marketing's webinar series. Today's topic will be clever retail strategies to increase online traffic and revenue. Your presenters today, of course, first off, is myself. My name is Will Larcom. I'm an account manager here at Hanapin Marketing. I've worked in a variety of verticals, from lead generation to quite a bit in e-commerce and retail in particular. I'm also a PPC hero blogger, so you can find content of mine right on there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Will_Larcom. Generally, I stick to mostly PPC news and updates, but every now and then you'll find a update about the sadness and terrible seasons that's going on for Michigan State sports right now. But beyond that, I'd like to introduce my co-presenter, Julia. So go ahead and take it away real quick.
Hey there, this is Julia Meter. I am an account strategist at Google. Essentially what that means is I work with our agency partners to help grow their accounts, to help them understand how to better optimize and how to try out new strategies for helping to improve the business overall. I actually come from an agency life myself, so I spent about 5 years working on a variety of verticals, including B2B, CPG, tech, etc. And now I get the pleasure of working with specifically a lot of retail partners and a lot of retail agencies. So very excited about the topic today. I do not have a Twitter account, but you can check out what Google's saying at Google.
Excellent. Thank you, Julia. So before we hop into everything here and work through some of these strategies, tech tools, targeting that we wanted to talk about, we want to tell you who is Hanapin. First off, we run the most popular PPC blog and PPC conference. That's PPC Hero and HeroConf, respectively. Next April, we'll be in Los Angeles for the United States HeroConf. I'll actually be there as well, so if you want to join us there, and happy to have a chat. You can find more about that at www.heroconf.com. Hanapin, as an industry-leading digital marketing agency, sticks to managing and optimizing clients' paid search, social, and of course display programs. A quick fun fact is our first and second client are still with us today. That's 12 years later, actually just now 13. We just became a teenager, so that's pretty exciting. I'd say a lot of that has to do with the business model we have here that has a strong retention rate for our account managers and really helps develop relationships and experience within the industry. Even better, our clients will see roughly a 250% faster growth after signing with us, and 93% of our partners keep working with us. So if you're in need of a team of experts, we have a building full of them. And beyond that, just a quick look at some of our clients here, ranging in size from small to big, and it's really fun to work here to represent a lot of these really highly respected names and exciting verticals to work in. So you can check out more at hanapinmarketing.com. Beyond the intros here, want to let you know that we'd love some interaction. So if throughout you have questions, need for clarification, please go ahead and use that question box. Beyond that, if you have any follow-up or any thoughts that you'd like us to provide you resource-wise, go ahead and use the hashtag ThinkPPC, and we'll definitely get engaged throughout. So before we truly hop in, want to open up a live poll question here. Go ahead and select one of the following to give us a good sense of what kind of questions, what kind of conversation we should be having here. So A, for less than 1 year, B, 1 to 3 years, C, 3 to 5 years, and D, 5+ years. For myself, I would fall into column B there at about 2 years. My analysis, data analysis background made a transition into PPC really natural, but I'm at about, I'm right in there in category B. All right. So all set to go. Looks like we have a good range of experience throughout. So we'll go ahead and hop into the agenda today. So first off, a lot of these webinars will sometimes focus on a really specific central problem, and we'll provide a walkthrough for that. Today, however, we're looking to look at some bigger trends here and throw some really quick hitting strategies at you that will allow you to implement them in your own account, do a little further analysis, and see if they represent a mesh for helping drive that increased revenue and volume within your retail options. So to kick it off, we'll send it over to Julia with industry, behavior, and trends, which will then transition into talking about the multi-channel conversion funnel, all the different touch points we're seeing, the nuances in that buyer journey. We'll talk about some product updates and targeting tools that are available to utilize to create that goal. Next, I'll bring it back to myself and talk about a couple of retail strategies that will tie these in through seasonality of budgeting, bidding, and geo-targeting. A couple of unique ways to be predictive in that way. Then we'll talk about ad copy, how we want to utilize promotional text in the incorporation of ad customizers. And lastly, we'll talk about a product coverage audit that'll lead us into our recap and Q&A. So with that said, I'm going to toss it over to Julia.
All right, so we're going to kick it off with talking about the retail landscape as a whole and how the industry is doing, and really how consumers are shopping from both an in-store perspective but also online. So if you think about the old reality of retail and the way that we used to engage with consumers, there used to be a storefront, and that was the only way that you could get somebody to buy from you. You had to somehow get them into your store, that foot traffic, and then once they were in there, it was your job to convert them and make a sale. But the reality that we live in today is a little bit different. So if you progress to the next slide, the number of people walking into physical store locations is down about 57% over the last few years. But what's interesting is even though people are walking into stores less, the value of each of their visits is increasing by about 3x. So I'd pause here and ask for questions, but I don't know if anyone can actually speak up. So essentially the reason for that is basically people are doing their research ahead of time. They're going online, they're seeing what they want to buy. People don't have as much of that disposable time to walk around shops as much anymore. We look to see what we want to buy, we look to see where exactly we can buy it, and then we go in and make that purchase on the spot. So what does that mean for the industry overall? If we want to skip to the next slide, that means that e-commerce is actually becoming a really big opportunity. So as that purchase is happening, as that preparation is happening, the research for getting somebody into the store, people are finding it easier and easier to actually convert from the store's website or from their mobile app. So we're seeing the sales across the globe have increased about 21%. This stat is a bit outdated, but the growth is roughly the same when we look at last year as well. And the expectation is that e-commerce sales will double by 2018. So a lot of opportunity for both brick and mortar stores and also any clients that have online only websites. And when it comes to understanding how we tap into this, it's really helpful to think about, and this is something that we might as individuals recognize, but we sometimes tend to forget this in relation to our consumers. There's 6+ hours being spent online every day. I think for some of us, that might be a little low if you think about the amount of time that you're constantly checking your Facebook, your Instagram, doing searches, going onto your email. And when you think about that experience, about 60% of all that time being spent online is actually happening through a mobile device. So we all, again, intimately know this for ourselves. We wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is check our phone, probably first to set off the alarm, but then to look at our email to see what's going on in our news feeds. And this is becoming increasingly more important as we think about this in relation to retail and this whole e-commerce landscape. Thanks. So what we've moved from is foot traffic to actually phone traffic, right? So as you're kind of moving about your day, you're constantly turning to your phone as that resource for helping you being guided throughout your day. You look for places where you can go make a purchase. You look for which pharmacy is closest to you, going onto Seamless to purchase food for the night. So there's all these different touch points at which we're able to reach consumers. The goal now is to figure out amongst all these different pieces of phone traffic, which of them matter most to you, and when is the right time to be speaking and getting somebody to convert. So if you think about the consumer journey, It really is no longer about foot traffic. It's actually not even just about phone traffic. It's about how all these pieces work together. And if you think about your end consumer, and this really varies depending on who you're working with and the type of client that you have, but think about their users. Think about what's most convenient for them. Is it at the end of the day, do they need to go into the store because let's say you're selling mattresses and that's something that somebody wants to sit on and feel and experience for themselves? Or is it perhaps just an electronic item, which you really don't need to go all the way into the store to confirm that you need and or want? For you, it might just be more about researching the best opportunity and then purchasing online, especially when it comes to cross-device purchasing, thinking about, it's e-commerce really is, we generalize it into this larger bucket, but sometimes if we think about it as mobile versus desktop, there's also a lot of nuances that we have to consider when, again, deciding on strategies for our clients. And we'll get into the tactical portion of that later. So again, reiterating this, people are using their phones a lot. It's most of the time spent online is happening on a phone, but a lot of it is using research before making a purchase. So this is just something really important to think about. A lot of times when I see that when clients look at their numbers, they see that a lot of their mobile traffic is coming from mobile, but not as much the conversion. And if you'll go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about why. So essentially what we've seen across the board with our clients, and this might be relevant for those of you tuning in as well, mobile traffic is growing rapidly. So if you look on the left side of that mobile chart, you'll see that traffic to websites from mobile devices is growing very steadily. And in fact, traffic from desktops as a whole tends to be on the decline. But then whenever we look at conversion rates, you can see that mobile conversion rates more or less look to be flat, whereas desktop is significantly increasing. And the reason for that is essentially that we're not valuing, there's two reasons. One, we're not necessarily valuing and attributing mobile's full role in the conversion funnel and the conversion cycle. And two, it's because we've made it really challenging for users to convert on mobile devices. And while we've been working on adapting sites and building apps, a lot of clients haven't completely figured out exactly how to maximize that mobile screen and maximize the user experience. How do we get somebody to actually click through and convert, make a purchase on the spot? And if you look at the next slide, you'll see that, again, on mobile, traffic is up, engagement is up. People are so comfortable with the device. They're spending more and more and more time with it. They're looking around different websites. They're cross-checking prices. They're doing it on the go. They can be on your site multiple times a day just whenever it pops up to them. And on desktop, the engagement actually is decreased, but first-time converters, the people who just go on and immediately buy, has increased. And again, tying back to the fact that mobile is the platform where research and discovery happen. It's where a lot of people start their searches, and then they go onto the desktop to complete. And again, the reason this is happening is not just because people are hesitant to buy on mobile, it's just because we're making it difficult for them. If you think about if your client has any kind of form function after clicking to purchase and they need to fill in their home address and email and all this information about their date of birth and things that might not actually be all that relevant, that's more challenging typically to do on a mobile device. Users get frustrated and then they want to drop off. And the one thing to think about here for your brands is A, how do we improve the mobile experience? But B, if we know that that's going to be a challenge, how do we make sure that we're not losing those consumers that are, raising their hands about our brand on mobile? How do we make sure that they actually do go to their desktop and come back to our site and not go to a competitor? So a few things that we're doing to help with bridging this kind of mobile experience and the online to offline space. One is local on mobile. So a lot of you might have experienced this for yourself. If you started looking for any kind of products recently on Google, we kicked this off about a year and a half ago. You're able to type in a product and then you can actually look for the products that are in store nearest you. So as you can see on the screen, this is showing us Nike shoes that are at Walmart, at Kohl's. This is using shopping ads, but you can see that it's in a store near you. And if you go to the next slide, you can actually now even buy online and pick up in store. So again, back to that same piece of making sure that we're connecting all of our different user devices and making sure that we're going from phone to desktop or from phone to store or from desktop to store for that matter. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for consumers to get exactly what they want, no matter what channel they start on. And one thing, as we talk about the importance of not losing out on your consumers and not losing out on customers who start on one device and move on to another, it's also really important to know that in general, and again, think about this for yourself, with the proliferation of so much information and so many websites and so many portals, we're never really committed to making purchases on our first go round. So we can get to a site, so let's say burpee.com, say we uncovered this new site that sells seeds. We go there and we see these tomato heirloom seeds, but we're not sold yet. We don't know if this is the best value we could possibly get. Maybe there's another company that can get it to us for slightly cheaper. So what do? We go on Google, we search the exact same thing we're looking for. The one thing that we've added in as a functionality is the ability for you to now build in remarketing lists. So people who visited your site previously. And what you can actually do for shopping and also on search is that you can say, you know what, if this person has already visited my page in the past, they've visited burpee.com, they're probably more likely to buy from me. They're familiar with my brand. They've seen what I offer. I want to make sure that I'm bidding a little bit higher on them because it's a lot easier to convert somebody who's familiar with me than convert somebody who's never heard of Burpee before. So this is something we released about 6 months ago, and it's one of the most tremendous products we have. It's called RLSA for short, Remarketing List for Search Ads. And I highly recommend, if you're not currently using this with your clients, for you to implement this as soon as humanly possible. At the very least, so you can start getting data about the types of people that are purchasing from you. And finally, another product that's really interesting, same mindset in the sense of finding the customers that you're already reaching and making sure that you're capturing them whenever they're searching for similar products. Another product we have is called Customer Match. So what this does is it takes your existing email lists. So if any of your clients are capturing email addresses from registrants, for people who shopped from them in the past, maybe someone who just visited the website and wants more information, we can build out these profiles of the different email lists that you have, and again, target from those onto your search engine. So here, for an example, let's say JCPenney knows that they have customers that tend to shop for wedge sandals in the summertime. They capture all the people that last summer bought wedge sandals with them and their various email addresses. And then whenever that person is looking for a new season of wedges coming up for the summer and they're just looking for a non-brand, don't know what they want yet, JCPenney can say, you know what, I'm willing to bid up a little bit more because they've bought from me in the past. They're more likely to come back again. So let me make sure that I set a bid adjustment of 10, 15, 20% just to ensure that I'm utilizing the most efficiency out of all of my campaigns and connecting all the information I have from both offline and online together. And that's all.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Julia, for walking us through that. There's a lot of useful tactics and targeting that we have there. I definitely got a second the use of remarketing for shopping campaigns there. As just about any account manager will tell you, shopping is the point and focus for a lot of retail companies here, meaning shopping campaigns, and that remarketing aspect really allows us to tap into that recently engaged audience and be able to bring them back when the time is right. But now we'll get right into some digital retail strategies that go a little bit deeper than the tech here and talk about a couple different segments of it. So the first thing that I want to get into is seasonality. And now, of course, when we think of seasonality, sometimes we'll think of holidays, Black Friday. But when it comes to retail, there's seasonality going on 100% of the year. For retailers that bring a diverse account line or product line, it's important to keep looking at this and kind of stay ahead of the game as opposed to really reactionary. So what are we going to do here to get ahead of the game, try to drive some additional traffic and revenue? Is we're going to check the forecast. The goal is to not be unprepared here. We don't want to show up to the beach, for an analogy, in our winter coat or vice versa. So what are we going to do to meet this goal? We are actually going to try to attempt to predict seasonality. So the stated goal here is to be proactive instead of reactive with our approach. This is going to be a perfect match for retailers with a varied product line. So as Julie alluded to earlier, somebody like JCPenney or Converse or H&M, somebody who has sports apparel, boots, sunglasses, outerwear, different segments that regardless of the year will be trending up and down, and we want to make sure we're reacting to those accordingly and before the time so we can perfectly capitalize. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to compare monthly versus yearly average, or of course you could do monthly versus the recent month, but we're going to compare our upcoming month average versus yearly averages within budgeting and bidding and targeting to sort of get a good sense of what we can expect in terms of traffic fluctuations. So budgeting. The method here, as I said, is to compare those fluctuations in our KPI to the 12-year average. And now your key performance indicator in this case could be CPA, it could be return on ad spend, whatever you want to look at. But today's basic metrics, we're really going to look at available impressions and conversion rate. So first off, let me establish the basic metrics we'll be working with, which are clicks, impressions, impression share, and conversion rate. Next, we're talking about our calculated metrics here, which are going to be percent of clicks in the account, percent of impressions, and then available impressions. So to find these really quick, of course, percent of clicks we'll attribute to each individual campaign, and would be campaign clicks divided by account clicks. So we're seeing what amount they account for throughout our entire setup. And then available impressions will be the impressions accrued divided by impression share. So that's going to give us the max amount of impressions we could have tapped into had we been bidding to a high enough rank and budgeting to a max. We're not necessarily looking to do that. We're just looking to see what the sort of supply change is. And ultimately, the goal we're going to see here is use that change in impression availability and conversion rate to predict the seasonality we can expect. So, of course, it's a little tough to throw an Excel doc into a PowerPoint here, Preza. But nonetheless, this gets us a good kind of idea of what we're working with here. So each of these campaign groups have been simplified down to kind of make it a little bit easier to digest. But as we see working through the top table, we have impressions of 2016 versus impressions for 2016 of February. And that's true for impression share and the impression available difference. Now this is going to give us a sense of how February performs in relation to the rest of every other month. We can also do this, we could also do January 2016 versus February 2016 if we just wanted to look at a one-month seasonal trend as well. So that'll work depending on whatever time frame you're looking at. As we move into that bottom table, now we're looking at impression percentage difference, so the amount of impressions they've accounted for, and the impression available percentage in those final two boxes on that bottom there. So that means of all the impressions that were available, if we were bidding as much as we very much could, this is what is there. And now we're going to look at the difference between what was available in 2016 and what is available percentage-wise from February 2016. And so that brings us into our next step, where that simple difference formula is just going to be the 2016 February percentage minus the 2016 percentage, and then divide that by 2016. So once we kind of work through that and we look at our February versus the full year average impression available difference, we start to see some really huge jumps here of where we're going to start to see more traffic. In particular, we see sunglasses tailing off, shoes staying about steady, a little boost for swimsuits, I suppose maybe spring break coming up of that sort. Athletic gear stays steady, but outdoor winter and boots, we still see a huge jump in here. So again, if we want to compare to January, that'll give us that boost. This is giving us a sense of the overall year seasonality. Beyond that, we want to take a peek at our conversion rate difference, as we're not only concerned about how much supply is out there, we're concerned about the efficiency we're going to see. As we take a peek at that, we actually have some efficient rises throughout the month of February here. But in particular, our two segments where we're going to see some impression difference reveal true opportunity to shift that budgeting around and get more in front of those those type of products, or if you have them segmented by campaign into those campaigns. So what are we going to do with this beyond budgeting? Simply just raising a budget when impression share is low is probably not do the trick. Chances are that if you're not constrained by budget, your issue is that you're losing out due to rank. So what we need to do here is get aggressive where that seasonality shows. So what we're hoping to do is boost average position and impression share by essentially predicting that we're going to see a little bit rise of efficiency in those areas. Now, of course, there's some obstacles to this. I'm not going through a specific bidding element here today because they vary so wildly between account. But if you are utilizing automated bidding where you're setting a target goal from a return on ad spend perspective, or maybe a CPA, or whatever it is you're utilizing, consider ahead of time shifting that as you move into that first week, so we're proactive, not reactive. Consider setting that up a little bit lower, as we can likely expect a little bit better of efficiency due to that boost in supply coming forward. If you are using manual bidding, whether it's through a pretty comprehensive Excel sheet, or if it is going in individually into each campaign, make sure you're focusing on those segment fluctuations that we spoke of earlier and reacting to each one accordingly. Now the last is some seasonality by geo that we'd like to talk about. Now the problem here is that efficiency and volume are going to fluctuate across targeted locations. The complication here is that certain locations perform better, but campaigns are not segmented by geo. So a good example of this maybe would be if you're selling sunglasses. For example, my family in Michigan has not seen the sun for about 3 or 4 weeks. Whereas if you're down in Florida or Texas or anywhere else, that product still is carrying a fair amount of weight and still a fair amount of supply. So this is going to allow us to look at that upcoming trends that we tend to see and adjust to seasonality by geo without having to completely change our account structure altogether. So again, this is a pretty easy process. We're looking to solve this through just a weighted location report. What it will do will equally weight the last X months of data. So if you want to look at last 3 months, 1 month of data with year-over-year data of the upcoming segment to kind of provide us with a weighted basis here. Now you can use any KPI you want, any sort of baseline metric that we've spoken about earlier, as CPA, return on ad spend. But in our case, we were looking for an efficiency metric here as kind of the dummy example. And as you'll see, we're looking at that revenue click difference for the last 3 months there. And so again, using that same sort of calculation we used earlier to establish that difference percentage. And we're using the last 3 months because that's going to give us a good sense of, who's in the market, who are we competing with, what areas have we improved in, how are we doing overall. But then we're going to also factor in a good weight of how everything went last year. So that's going to tell us, the seasonality, the season change, how that geo responds versus the account average. And the way you get that revenue per click difference, of course, is going to be the state-specific revenue click in comparison to the entire campaign setup. And then after that, once we've done both of those calculations for the 2 segments, we're going to put 50% weight to both and get our nice even amount there in that second to last column. And then we'll set up our bid adjustments from there. In this case, this is pretty aggressive bid adjustments. I tend to stick in between, the 20 to 30% range, and I like to keep an upper and lower limit here. But nonetheless, that is how you would do seasonality by geo. So the next thing we want to talk about that's really going to allow you to engage with the different devices, the different steps that we're taking through our conversion funnel, as Julia spoke about, and ultimately make sure those shopping lists that you have are up at the right time. It's going to be our promotional ad copy here. So the idea is we want to prepare ahead of time and not misrepresent our promotions, our sales that are going on in any sort of negative sense. We want to capitalize on these, and each time we want to learn something from them. So the issue can be for some account managers or some accounts in general is that there's just so many promos or unique sales that come out of left field, or they just run for so long, that they can make ad copy testing a little bit difficult. The idea here is we want to implement a template-based solution to make this, really effective manner of quickly updating ad copy and diverting away from testing minor changes within each individual sale to starting testing major theme alterations across every sale. So the benefits that this are going to give us is, an incremental improvement to each promo. So that means each time we're going to look back and see, what worked beforehand, what didn't. It's going to give us actionable data to pass back to the client. So we're going to allow to show them which promotional way of this sale was the most relevant, produced the most action, was the most engaging for their customers. And then lastly, of course, this is just an organized, efficient implementation that will help us out all throughout the process. The setup here, here's what your bulk sheet could look like. As you see, we have 2 variations per ad group here, color coordinated with the green and blue. What we're looking to do generally is we'll keep headline 1 as kind of the relevancy standard, and then headline 2 is where we'll start to test, as that tends to be where we see the biggest changes in performance based on alterations because of the eye test in which they see it, the connection to the audience. And then we'll keep all else the same. We'll keep that description the same, so we have a very safe A to B test here. And then lastly, also highlighted is that label column, which that's going to be really important for follow-up data, whether it's right after the sale or months down the line, to be able to pull all of those different sales, throw them through a pivot, and get some really useful information there. So the setup, as I said, in step 1 is creating the promo template we just looked at. Step 2 is making sure you have an actionable test here. Now what we're looking at is something that we can utilize from sale to sale, even if the actual dynamics of it sort to change. So an example of that is speaking like if you have a 20% off sale, saying 20% off or saying 20 off 100, 10 off 50. So we're giving the dollar value. That's going to really change based on kind of the price point of the products you're promoting and the entire kind of makeup of your audience, which one delivers the most value for them. And then, of course, the next item is whether or not including a promo code directly in your copy is worthwhile versus, some value props that you might need that copy space for, such as free shipping or other variations of returns for that matter. So going into it, you want to know your KPI. You want to know what you're going to measure as success. And if it's return on ad spend or CPA, that's definitely what I usually go for. But I have had clients in the past that have preferred to optimize specifically around click-through rate, as their feeling was that once you're to the site, all things being equal, the purchase that happens after that is more by chance than by virtue of the messaging the ad set you up there. So that will work too. As I said before, make sure to label properly. That's going to help in your data analysis, and that's also going to allow you to set automated rules to trigger and pause these, as I know most of us, not all of us, but most of us are not running optimizations at 12 in the morning or 12 at night, depending on how you view that. Most of us aren't up at that night, and so this will help us enact and pause promos right as they go live, and we're never, oversending or too late to the party there. So a quick resource, as I said, since we're jumping through the high-level strategy of these, is provided there that will help you set up those promos quickly. Now, once we kind of finish all of this is how we like to analyze the results, and I'm sure each kind of account manager group has their own take on how this will best work. But we use sort of a significance calculator here that allows us to see, from a couple different metrics. Here we're looking at click-through rate and the efficiency metric and impression until conversion. And as we see in that first test, the control with the promo code versus no promo code ended up being a lot stronger for us. So moving forward in sales, we would want to include that as much as possible. Then next, the control of days remaining countdown, which is an ad customizer, which we're going to talk about in just a couple minutes here, versus just the date of the sale end. So we're talking 2 days until sales end versus sale ends 2/11. That one, the actual date of the sale actually performed better for us. So that's something we probably likely want to test again to ensure in the next test that we're seeing the same consistent results. But nonetheless, testing major theme alterations versus minor punctuation changes is what we're looking for here. So moving into ad customizers, as I just alluded to, Matt Umbro, the organizer of the PPC Hero blog, this is something that he is extremely passionate about. And the reason why is that we've seen them increase engagement throughout uniquely tailored messaging just across so many accounts. Now, this really goes back to speaking directly to what Julia is telling us, is that we're seeing so much research, we're seeing so much of this process moving through each part of the funnel, that these ad customizers give us a chance to react to that and engage with the audience based on a large set of variables here. Now, these can either intuitively be built directly in an ad, or they'll reference a feed in your shared library. So again, we've supplied an implementation guide that you can reference in the slide deck that will be sent through, and that'll help you get those set up. But some examples of ad customizers that we've used in the past that we'd like to share with you guys is simply incorporating the shipping capability of an audience's city. You know, we ship to Bloomington, or free shipping to Bloomington. It may seem silly just to add that simple extra note, but it's actually done wonders to kind of connect and provide that added engagement that you wouldn't otherwise see. These can also be utilized to kind of expedite the entire sales process. So maybe you have you know, customizers built for the entire description, or the entire headline too, is using a placeholder that will reference these and allow you to save the promotional details. So within the feed, you'd have a target campaign, target ad group, and then within that, it would actually access the sales details. So that way, instead of creating new ads each time, you're actually just updating the sales feed that they'll reference. Another, which I just spoke about, was the countdown clock for the end of a sale, which does a great job of showing urgency. The geo-based, which ties us really strongly back to, you know, local inventory ads, in that if you do have a brick and mortar store, you can set up you know, the targeted location of those areas and include in, you know, shop in store in our Bloomington location, which I'm throwing out Bloomington because that is our headquarters here in beautiful southern Indiana. But next item that we'd like to talk about is one of our favorites that just kind of went into action, and that is using if statements. So in the past, you could always use a feed, a customizer to target the different device, but now you can use an if statement directly in your ad copy, which on PPC Hero, there was just a blog entry that went live on this. That allows you to speak to device or audience. So if, you know, if you're coming through mobile and we're saying 93% of purchases are starting there, it's going to help us to maybe use a different call to action, maybe a less sales oriented, and we're trying to get them in and through the funnel. Or if we do have a really highly optimized site, let's speak to that as well. And the next item, which I think is really valuable, is now being able to speak to an audience. So if we know it's a past converter or somebody who came to the site and didn't convert, and we want to give them maybe a lesser known small promo code to help push along that product, we can include that in. Or also alternatively, if we know they have a certain brand affinity, we can relay the details to that. So here's some quick promotional examples that I've seen lately. One in particular, Blue Apron, it must be right in their GEA or their demographic area, because I see a lot of good advertising out of them. And nonetheless, you see that they are trying to leverage those different propositions up top. So, you know, 3 meals free, then providing that value prop, as opposed to $30 off, plans $8.74. So this is the kind of thing, as you go through different promos, as you go through different aspects of pricing, you can keep using that same sort of setup, but test the theme as opposed to, you know, a period here or punctuation there or whatever it is. Same deal goes down for our bottom here with Nordstrom, as sometimes running promotional ads actually doesn't have a huge impact, so it can actually be helpful to look at just your normal ads, such as, you know, free shipping, returns, the regular value props you have, versus some sale items that can be there along with kind of those value props that you have. All right, so bonus, we're going to get into this just really quickly as to not take up too much of your time. But it's going through a quick product audit to see as we're looking at these inventory ads at these locals and seeing what sales are really driving from a seasonality basis. It's really beneficial that we make sure to audit our own coverage. So how will you do this? You will reference product level data to audit coverage of top converting products. We're going to do this, we're going to navigate to Google Analytics. From there you go to conversions, e-commerce, and product performance. And at that point we're going to look for top converting, most efficient. We're looking for huge month-over-month changes. And the key to bringing away a good takeaway here is to compare your coverage, so from a paid perspective or AdWords or whatever you're running, compare that to the organic and direct. So you're seeing what people are searching. You're seeing what people who are very familiar with the brand are going there right away are purchasing. But most important, I find, is looking at the differences between maybe an email campaign or another marketing platform of that sort. So that way you can match up the efforts that are going on. And since you know there's additional promotion, maybe through banners, through emails, that you're likely to see a particular boost to those products. So this really gives you a good sense to see where opportunity is and what else you can add beyond the budgeting and bidding. So quick recap, just to get on through. From seasonality perspective, we're looking at our budgets, and we want to alter based on fluctuations in supply and efficiency compared to year-over-year data for the upcoming month. We're looking at bidding to adjust in the appropriate segments based on each issue that we uncovered through budgeting and where we see those product categories changing. And from a geo-targeting perspective, we're looking to use a weighted average to help with the past performance we've seen recently to the year-over-year changes. In regards to ad copy, for your promotional ad copy, test large instead of small will be a better use of your overall time and will create more consistency as we move through each layer of the process. And make sure to incorporate ad customizers to be able to speak to each layer, each level of your audience as they move through that entire buyout funnel. And lastly, a good way to check what you've missed is that product coverage audit. So next, we will jump into a quick offer here. If you would like a quick solutions blueprint or some custom analysis for your company, go ahead and hit A for yes or B for no thanks. What this is a custom account analysis for companies and brands that spend $15,000 or more in ad spend. One of Hanapin's experts, account managers, we'll take a peek in your account, try to uncover some free insights for you, and just get a fresh set of eyes to help you out with whatever your upcoming initiatives are on that. All right, so we'll move into the live Q&A time. So got a couple of quick questions to go through here, and I will kind of relay off the first one here. The inquiry was what you would do to follow up to ensure that your expectation of seasonality actually matched up with your reality. So that's a good question. So we are trying to predict seasonality here, and so if we get into it and we start to see that, we're not seeing changes in winter gear or boots, we're not being that efficient. It's important to continue kind of the reactive processes that you've still put in place. So you still want to do your bidding, you still want to utilize that, and make sure you're still you're targeting a specific ROAS or whatever it is. But in this case, since we're predicting ahead of time, we're just trying to get out in front of the game as to capitalize on the first 2 weeks of when we enter. Think of like gear up for baseball season or something of that sort. We want to make sure we're ready for that, as opposed to waiting on the data and then adjusting, and then we're already out of our situation here. And then let's see. I guess we'll. Looks like we have time for at least one more question here. So we'll jump into how would you utilize ad customizers in relation to mobile. That's a good question, because I think those are one of the most useful places to utilize it. As we've seen in particular with the adoption into extended text ad or expanded text ads, we no longer have the individual ads for mobile preferred or not. So this is an excellent scenario where we can still provide those mobile URLs or that final URL, but now we can totally adapt to what platform we have them on. So if you set that your if statement to device mobile, as we spoke about earlier, as one of the customizers, you can get them in that research phase, and you can also allow them to know that your account, your app, whatever it is really adaptable to the mobile phase, that you can shop on it, that it is mobile friendly. And the other item to that is that the call to action that you utilize in a customizer could also kind of alter and change based on the fact that we know the device there. All right, we'll jump. So that's actually everything we have here today. Just want to thank you guys for taking the time out of a busy Thursday to be part of Hanapin Marketing's webinar series. If you'd like to join us in the upcoming months, definitely keep taking a peek at PPC Hero for upcoming content. You can contact us directly at marketing@hanapinmarketing.com. And if you wanted to follow up and continue the dialogue with us, go ahead and use the hashtag ThinkPPC. So thanks again for your time, guys.
Thank you.